Welcome back to Data as the Fourth Pillar, the executive briefing designed to help boards and CEOs navigate the complexity of scaling AI. Today, we have a visionary guest who sits at the intersection of enterprise architecture and cutting edge artificial intelligence.
Our guest is Binny Gill, the founder and CEO of Kognitos Inc. Before launching Kognitos, he carved out an extraordinary career defining enterprise technology infrastructure. As the former CTO and chief architect at Nutanix, he led the product portfolio through massive growth, helping the company reach a $7 billion market capitalization.
Binny is not just a leader, he's a foundational technical mind in computer science, holding close to 100 issued patents in areas including distributed systems and storage. Today, his focus at Kognitos is agentic automation, driven by the core belief that businesses should be able to instruct computers using natural language, what he terms English as code.
His work at Cognitos emphasizes delivering deterministic, trustworthy AI by building a neurosymbolic platform that eliminates hallucinations and ensures complete auditability. This ties directly into our podcast theme. Binny strongly advocates that a robust data foundation is essential for deploying powerful agentic AI.
Binti constantly argues that data is the memory of an organization and the definitive strategic driver. Join us as we explore why he believes the future belongs only to those companies who are structurally ready to establish data as their indispensable fourth pillar.
Let's welcome Binny Gill. Hi, Binny. Welcome to this podcast episode of Data as the Fourth Pillar. It's a CEO and board briefing. Welcome today. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you, Sujay, for having me on the podcast, and delighted to meet you, Sid, as well.
Thank you for
Great, Binny. As we kick off the conversation for our listeners, if you could introduce yourself and what you are doing.
Yeah, so I'm Binny Gill, founder and CEO of Kognitos. It's an agentic automation platform built to have no hallucinations. Prior to Kognitos, I was CTO at a company called Nutanix, where we pioneered hyperconverged enterprise cloud infrastructure for the enterprises globally. My background is I'm a computer science graduate from IIT Kanpur in India, and I did my master's here in Urbana-Champaign. I've been a programmer all my life. 25 years ago, I moved to the US in the dot-com era, which frankly changed everything. Today, AI is rewriting all the rules of the dot-com era. Now, everything is changing. So happy to be part of this next revolution as well.
Yeah, great. So we are, I think, very lucky. I think no one goes by a day without using the word AI today, right, Binny?
Exactly. It's like electricity.
Yeah.
I think at some point people will stop saying the word, just like nobody says electricity. We just plug in the wire and start using it. But there's a period where, I mean, I also remember when I was younger, it's like we needed to know what voltage, and we used to have adapters of different voltages and all of that. And we would talk about amperage as well. But then it loses, the relevance. We start focusing on bigger problems that are more relevant. I think AI will just move quite fast through that journey. We are already seeing that. We are in a hyper accelerated world today. Again, dot-com, internet connected people together, and now we are seeing AI leveraging that connectivity, and we are rapidly changing.
awesome, Benny. So you mentioned you are now started a company called Cognitos. Could you give us and our listeners a bit of context of Cognitos? I'm sure that has something to do with AI, maybe something to do with data as well. As you know, the theme of our podcast is data as the fourth pillar. Would love to know more about Cognitos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close to data. My journey has been all around data and storage, and The word Kognitos stands for, it's a cognitive operating system. So 5 years ago, when I was thinking about how AI will go and impact the world, um, one thing I was looking at Alexa in the kitchen and Siri and other things, right? So that was actually an example of computer understanding one-liners and doing work for you. And I've been a programmer. I'm like, okay, when I talk to my laptop and programming in Python or C++ is like, why is that not English, right? Um, I thought about maybe it's worth giving it a shot where instead of just one-liner English, can we do more complex uh, programming? And then I realized that actually humans are good at that. When I worked with my son trying to teach him coding, first I taught pseudocode. Pseudocode was simple, like whatever you're thinking naturally, logically write it down. And then I realized, a sports coach is a programmer. They write playbooks. Grandma writing a recipe for biryani is a programmer, right? A manager who says, okay, these are the 5 things I want to do before the employees onboarded into my team is a programmer. In fact, politicians are programmers if they write legislation. Um, Religious leaders who write books are programmers, right? They program the whole society. So programming is actually pretty natural to human beings. And it is actually the steering wheel for society or steering wheel for a business. Now think about expressing what you want in natural language, and instead of humans following it, AI follows it. So that was the dream. And I wanted to see, like, can we do that? So we started off Kognitos, where it will be a platform that, just like humans, diligently follow your business logic, business rules. AI will follow the same thing, English as code. Okay, and what it needed is you don't want things, the human to make some random decisions. When you write down something, because it's important that people follow it, they don't use their smartness to do something different. You want people to follow it. So we had to build a paradigm with AI where it is neurosymbolic, meaning it is deterministically going to follow what you said. So that's the Cognitus offering. Today we are bringing AI transformation to businesses where you can trust that AI will follow your process. Just like you trusted human, the more you can trust AI, the more you can actually get the benefit out of it.
Yeah, I think trust of AI is a big topic, right, for our generation. I think it is with human beings as well. You trust a human being and then you work closer, and that's the same with AI,
Yes.
right? So nothing surprisingly there. But very interestingly, you talk about the role of data throughout your career. Within the Cognitos landscape, how do you see data playing the role in terms of maturity with AI or even trusting AI? And within your Cognitos value proposition itself, how do you see yourself differentiating and what role does data play in that differentiation for you?
Correct. So, I've worked in all layers of where bits and bytes are required. In my 2 companies ago, I was working IBM research on flash storage, which was figuring out how you store the bytes on flash device. But again, the whole idea is there that you have information, and you can call it data, you can call it knowledge, you can call it insight, right? Or
Yep.
this it's a spectrum, right? But or if it's a human being, you call it memory, right? So at the end of the day, think about intelligence with amnesia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Very brilliant person but cannot remember anything.
Exactly.
That's a useless person, right? So that's where I would like to put it, like, data is memory of an organization, and without memory, intelligence is useless. So you have to first of all solve the data problem, right? Make sure that your memories are correct and they are not polluted with wrong things. Then you have to figure out how can you bring that data to decision making engines. Last 25 years, we have talked about bringing data to humans so that they could make better decisions, and you have all sorts of insight, dashboarding tools and all of that. Now we are living in a world where you have to want to bring the same data to AI so that it can make decisions, right? And that is transforming. In fact, data is now transforming into something else called knowledge, because there is data of what happens in businesses in the ledger of the business, But then there is also something that humans keep in their minds, which we call tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
Today, tribal knowledge is also becoming a new kind of data.
Yeah.
And that is also getting codified in documents so that AI, because AI cannot look into your brain and figure out what it is. And AI also is not like humans, like you talk to somebody and you understand really. AI is very subservient. It always says you always right, that kind of stuff. So it needs documented tribal knowledge, institutional knowledge. So combine the traditional data with the institutional knowledge, and that is the underpinning of AI becoming useful. So Cognitos, we are in a place where we are bringing AI automation to enterprises, whether it's finance and accounting, legal, HR. There are a lot of processes, but it is layered on top of data and layered on top of APIs, right? And of course, so data and APIs, what happens is we say, while we are doing this automation, we are also capturing your business logic, the process itself, and all the variations, which is termed as tribal knowledge. And as you use more of Cognitos, now you are collecting how your business works as a new layer of data. That this is what it means to be Acme Corp, right? You
Yeah.
collected that new set of data. And then there is a cycle. When you do the automation, I call it automation exhaust. What comes out of automation is actually another piece of data,
Yeah.
which you have to feed back into your core knowledge system, and then the future decisions are better and better. So yeah, intelligence and data are actually very intertwined.
I think you make a great point because when we talk with a lot of business leaders and we bring up the topic of data, unfortunately, still the topic is still thought of as being something very deep down the barrels, right? In the sense, hey, it's something in a database or it's something lying within my ERP application. That is my data. But you bring the right
Correct.
point that you can make it into knowledge because data is basically, especially when connected to the business meaning and the processes that you mentioned, that brings a huge perspective difference. It can almost be a competitive differentiator for your enterprise, right? So just wanted to add on to or more ask your perspectives on this. So when you say you are considering data as kind of your knowledge base, is that, are you seeing or building Cognitos where data is its own, kind of almost a pillar, or do you see it still within application? So just wanted to understand a bit more how you are actually going about building this whole knowledge base that you're talking about.
Correct. Yeah. So, just like you'd say, people is a pillar, right? Process is a pillar. People and process are in every department.
Yeah.
It's not one department's job.
Exactly.
Same thing, data has to be in every department. It's a core foundational piece that has to be properly owned by every function. So if your engineering function or your sales function, marketing function, everybody has their own data and knowledge. Now, we are now capturing, say, pick marketing. So in marketing, what do you want to capture? What's the voice of the company? What's the voice of me, myself? I have kind of a digital twin also available, right? And now that is marketing knowledge about how we speak, right? Sales has a whole bunch of knowledge. What's the first call deck? How do you, what is the pain points? What are the battle cards and all of that? And now that has to be very, very structured in a way that AI can read that and understand exactly what and accelerate that function. So every function in Cognitos today is accelerated by AI, right? I mean, finance is accelerated, legal is super accelerated. Now, on top of the traditional data, there is also this knowledge gathering that is happening right now. What I do is encourage everybody to leverage AI to document what is in their mind, right? So by working with AI, you're also creating a documented understanding of how you think, because AI doesn't know really what you want. Today, the LLMs are an average of the entire internet data, right? So it can behave like a very bad company in your mind or a very good company. You just have to ask it how to behave. But in the absence of knowledge about what you want from AI or what you stand for, AI cannot serve you. So the fundamental thing is telling every organization to document first. Now, as an example, with engineering, we have pushed it to the limit. We say, look, don't write software. First, write the architecture and document it. And of course, AI will help you document it. And then you write the APIs. Okay, figure out where the data lies and all of that. And then the code will be written by AI. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You are the manager of AI and you just go make sure that it is done right. Testing and all of that is done through documentation. So, and I'm happy because it also ties back to our core principle that English is code. That code is actually the code of conduct. Like, it's like how every function works. It's not just software.
Yeah, most companies would love to be there, Benny. But having said that, in a pragmatic world, maybe you are a company of the modern age. You do not have the legacy of the
Mhm.
past. And some might think, yeah, you are in a happy world, Benny, you can do it. But as you are deploying Cognitos to larger enterprise who have been there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, how do you see when you take this thinking towards your customers, enterprises who has been there for many years?
Yeah, so we lend a helping hand to them, right? So it's, all the enterprises out there, it's very clear to them that they have to leverage AI. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's not just technology. We actually help them educate internally, help them with the process, like how do you go from idea discovery to prioritization of what are your places where AI should be deployed, where it should not be deployed, and then the ROI calculation as to how do you understand the impact of AI? Some of it is, dollars. Some of it is actually, maybe your customer experience would be better because your quote goes out sooner or the invoice gets paid in time and so on. And the mistakes are not there. Sometimes companies pay fines because of human mistakes. And
Yeah.
now AI is already at a point. So we help our customers throughout the journey, not just the technology piece, and whether it's Cognitos being used or some other technology they need to use. That's what we do. The idea is to give a business the outcome they want on the business side while technology is changing very rapidly. Every 6 months it's changing. It's kind of unfair for us to make the customers understand AI and what's happening. Right? That's our job. What we have to come and say is, look, your business problem, we're gonna guide you and continuously guide you as to how you can go on the journey. Now, talking about big companies, small companies. So small companies like us, they do not have the rigidity of past 10, 20 years, right? But we also don't have process, right? That much. Now, the big companies have both an advantage and disadvantage. They at least know the process because so many people have joined and left the company. They have documented what they expect from humans.
Right.
So they're already ahead in that aspect. They have a lot of data, they're not connected well.
Yeah.
But that's where we come and help. It's like, okay, you have some data, you need the connectors. We'll go and build that connector for you. There's AI, and we can very quickly build the connectors, give them the access to the data, and then start building layers on top,
Mhm.
right? So they're in a good spot. The only thing the large companies need to figure out, which is something more around the human to human thing, is like, is there resistance to change? And
Yeah.
that's a cultural, that a vendor from outside cannot do. But
No.
what we do is empower people to understand the value. And then that way they can.
And Benny, on that topic, if we focus on the data part, when you go and talk to the customers, do they have the same realization like you that data is critical for success, or do you feel you have to handle the mentality change as well? Them thinking data is a byproduct, but you coming with a perspective that data is so critical to the success of
Hmm.
their initiative. How do you see that experience?
I see it's, I think, very dramatically changing today. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would say, yeah, people don't understand the value of data. But today, more and more people do understand the value of data because as they are seeing AI and they know that AI needs information, they quickly get it that yes, they need data and also clean data. They know that if the data is bad, then AI will be not able to help them. So I think that part is very clear now in most companies. Just that they need help in actually setting that up, which takes time. But yeah, a lot of customers are trying to solve this problem, the benefit of what AI has done. And also, there's a lot of tools out there. So these individual organizations that traditionally have not been software, shops, they are able to actually do more with that data and create the dashboards that they need. So it's rapidly expanding. So I think the problem is getting solved. There's a lot more awareness already. It's just the execution will take time.
No, that's critical, and just to add there, in the AI world, you talked about good data, and there's significant focus on data quality. That's very true. However, in the AI world, and as we talk in our book, we think that two other dimensions are very important. The second dimension is compliance, because when you're giving data to the AIs, you need to be compliant. In US, like every state has its own compliance laws in Europe and every other country. And then another important part is the speed part. Like we as humans are compromising, we could say, okay, I'll wait for a day or an hour. But when you're deploying these AI agents, the data must be available with that right quality, and the compliance checks done at that very moment. So how do you see that playing of these dimensions, which we call as data intensity of QCS, quality, compliance, and speed?
Yes, yes. In fact, that's getting more and more important. So with AI, compliance is more important than earlier, right? Because the more powerful something is, the more you have to worry about compliance, right? Just like nuclear power, you need the most amount of compliance there because bad things can happen if you do it wrong. Uh, so with AI, what's happening is, of course, so we have customers around the world, and every country has their own compliance and data residency requirements. So we help them do that. And now companies have also data residency requirements. Some companies will say it has to be within my own private cloud, and this is where we specialize. We because we have enterprise background. And I myself I worked in a company where we were building private cloud for large enterprises. So whether it's behind a VPN or whether you need to use the custom model that the customer has, or you need to use the LLM accounts that they have paid for and they have guarantees from the LLM vendors that their data will not be used for training. All of those requirements today are something that our platform supports, and customers need to have full understanding of what's happening, right? So our LLM vendors give us guarantee, which we forward to our customers, that zero data retention on the vendor side and on our side. So that way there is no training happening. And the reason why training is such an important piece is it's becoming very easy to train models with data. So people are
Yeah,
more worried that if I am using AI to help my business, I should not be inadvertently helping my competitor because they'll use the same model and get the same insight. But there are concrete ways of making sure that does not happen. So that is one is data control, compliance. See, there are traditional SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, all of those things. EU has EU Act and CE plus all of those things we do. I feel there will be new requirements coming up, which people have not thought about, which AI is going to create. For example, like normally, would an enterprise be okay with running code that from a vendor that has
yeah,
not been reviewed by anybody?
exactly.
Normally, you would say, no, no, what do you mean? Like, there are so many checks and balances that code has to be written by somebody and reviewed by somebody, at least two people, otherwise, backdoors are coming in and all that. But guess what's happening with AI today? You ask ChatGPT or somebody in an enterprise, it dynamically writes a Python script and runs it. Who reviewed it? Only AI wrote it. Nobody even reviewed it. Now, that kind of risk, I mean, there'll be first few accidents, and then people will start creating more governance around what does it mean to use code that has never been reviewed by a human to be running your finances, for example. So this is where what we provide in our platform is we guarantee that there is no code that is not reviewed by a human that is held accountable for it,
Okay.
right? So you can use AI creatively to build automations, and once you approve and push it to production, then it becomes frozen in terms of creativity, and it's only going to do what you do. And if it gets stuck, it pulls in a human and unlocks the creativity again with a human in charge, right? It's almost like a self-driving car will only self-drive if you allow it to, and then but if you want to turn the steering, it's just gonna let go, like it's yours to control. That kind of stuff will need to happen.
And that could also be actually data, right? I mean, in a way that all these kind of rules and how you want your AI systems to behave could also, in your words, be written in English as kind of data documentation, which these
Absolutely, yeah. We're going into a world where basically it's markdown files which tell you how the business
Yeah.
works, and then database where the data lies. I mean, these are the two things that are needed for the future.
Right. I want to pick up something you said a while back, right? When Sujay asked the question about, companies who've been around for a while, and you said they all have data, but they're not connected with each other. And you and Cognitos are helping also from a maturity perspective to bring this together, right? And I think that's a very important point because when you also want these AI experiences to happen on top of these data stores, you don't want disjointed experience. For example, a marketing chatbot behaves very differently to maybe how a customer service chatbot behaves, just because the underlying data between these two are disconnected, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to understand that piece of Cognitos and maybe even your background a bit more, because as you said, you came more from a programming and a core tech background. How did this realization come together that this kind of a connected knowledge base data is kind of key? I'm just curious to
Yeah.
understand how that kind of came together.
Actually, it comes from, I've worked in large companies as well, right? It comes from my experience with humans, right? So, a lot of the times, and when a company has some, people say it's a political environment or whatever, it's about information hoarding, right? It is very critical data. A few people hoard it, and now therefore, because you have that data, you have the power that nobody can take from you. You see that, right? Now, I've seen that with humans, and while even then in that environment, companies work, and the reason they work is because the humans on the other side who don't have access to the data because of these data silos,
Hmm.
they still are human beings who are fundamentally aligned with the company. So they do think alike. So they can make the right guesses as to what it might be, right? But AI cannot do that. And that is why I think it's so critical to bust those data silos. Because imagine if you have AI in one department trying to guess what the other department's data might be.
Yeah.
How does it get? Because that AI was not even interviewed by the same kind of cultural values and all of that. So it's going to make some random decisions and all hell will break loose. And I don't think AI has alignment research done. Like when you bring in AI, you do a proper interview and only pick the AI that you think represents your company. And you have not even documented everything and given to AI. So therefore, I think for the large companies, the biggest challenge would be data silos because AI will be fast, but it will crash all the time. So you have to break the things. And the fundamental bottleneck would be how do you get rid of these political structures in large organizations? Because unless you break that, today's AI cannot solve the problem. There might be a future AI, which is like imagine the CEO of a large company says, okay, I want to interview 100 different AI engines, and each AI engine is of a certain type of thought process, and I will pick the one that I like. Once we have that kind of AI, then maybe even the data silos are okay because this AI is like, yeah, but I know what's happening. But it'll be more like a Sherlock Holmes like AI. Like I know.
Even if it knows connected data will still be much more accurate, right? I mean, the chances
Oh,
of
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, but then eh, the leaders of the company have to give authority to that AI. Basically, then that AI will be more like an executive who will say, "Look, I need access to this data because I have to make some decisions," and so on. In fact, we are looking at that problem because we are seeing that, and there might be some core research that we can do. We have a couple of researchers actually working on that problem. It's a research problem currently unsolved, but either people change how they work or AI has to be smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, Binny, as you're talking, it seems we are going to a future like maybe 5 or 10 years ago when we were working, we heard this phrase, software is eating the world and technology is your ultimate differentiator. Would
Yeah,
you agree? And that is my feeling that as we move into the future, technology being differentiated to data being the differentiator, because ultimately, whatever you're talking of, be the hardcore data or the context or the information hoarding, is all finally ending up in some kind of a document, some kind of a database, right?
I see. I will both agree and disagree, and I'll tell you why. Okay. First of all, yeah, software was eating the world. Today, AI is eating software, right? So that we know. Software is kind of dead. Um, just like, you and I are talking over this, we have laptops. Laptops are running assembly language, but do you even think about assembly language? No, but it is there. It's there. But it has been eaten away by the higher layers. So today's software will be eaten up by the higher layers with AI and natural language. That's done. Okay. Then the question comes about data. Okay. But essentially, what AI is doing is what a knowledge worker does, like making decisions based on intelligence and knowledge, right? Now, intelligence and knowledge does require data to form. Now, think about human beings. New kid is born. Okay. That kid does not have the data of millennia of humans, even century, but that kid goes to school. And in school, the kid actually does not get a lot of data bombarding and large data sets being fed into the brain. They read books. Books are distillation of knowledge. Newton wrote something and somebody summarized in 2 paragraphs for this kid to understand F equal to ma, right? Now, the kid could have also been given 1,000 different examples and then maybe figured out F equal to ma, or if the kid was Einstein, would have figured out, no, it's actually wrong, right? But no, society has figured out distillation process for data, convert it into knowledge, and teach human beings. So therefore, I'm kind of disagree and agree. Raw data, tons and tons of raw data was needed for the previous generation of AI. Now, high quality distilled data, like we use in schools for kids, and also it could be wrong, like F equal to ma is wrong, right? It doesn't matter if it's wrong, society agrees, right? So the business agrees. Distilled high quality data is what AI needs, because AI is able to extrapolate and interpolate and all sorts of things. Now, how do you get high quality distilled books or knowledge? That comes from data. So I'm agreeing that we need a lot of data, but we should not dump a lot of data on AI, right? There is a distillation process.
And in a way, if I kind of link to what you're saying, there's this also famous saying in retail industry, right? Like the information in the package is probably more important than the package itself. So in other words, kind of the information about the dietary requirements, what ingredients are in that maybe can of beans or whatever it is you're picking up. In a way, that's kind of becoming more important than the raw data itself, because that metadata and that context might be fed
Yeah.
by AI to make much more smarter decisions, or build more accurate enterprise RAG models or whatever it is on top of these.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where data will be in different forms and different characteristics, right? You have the raw data that is coming from the sources, and then you have the next level, what we call as a data intelligence layer in the operating model, where you are building up blocks, foundational blocks that could be reused, and also you're building up that enterprise, the knowledge graph, which is connecting all the different facets of data into the organization. And finally, you would have this finished products of data, which could be called as data products, which could be again being consumed by all these AI models, right? And Binny, it's not that data alone. People will continue to work. There will be processes, and there will be tech like AI. I think what we are formulating is all these 4 pillars will be working together to create the flywheel effect, and not just the 3 pillars of classical people, process, and technology, and you don't even consider data.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we move forward, Vinny, with your insight, your knowledge of what you're doing in Cognitos, and with your experience in different customers, organizations, both large and small, from the vantage position of a CEO, what would the message and suggestions would you like to give to other CEOs?
Yeah, so I meet a lot of CEOs from very large companies and very small as well, right? Everybody agrees that okay, AI is there, we need to do something about it and all of that, right? But I feel that there are a few problems out there. So some CEOs do not have the urgency that they need to have. Some have the urgency, but they do not understand the safety things that they need to consider as well, right? And then the others which have the urgency but also have the understanding of how to make it safe, right? So these are the three. Very few people are in the third bucket today, right? Now let's talk about folks who do not have the urgency, right? Now, like some people ask me, hey, how do you train your people to understand AI, and what courses should they take? And the moment somebody says what courses they should take, I'm like, okay, you're not getting it. And it's like, why? So look, if you have to learn horse riding, do you take a course? No. First thing you need to do is get a horse. That's the most important thing as a CEO you can do. So basically, give people AI first. Don't say, how will they learn? Then you have to say, give them a reason to get on the horse back. Give them a task that you can only do with AI. It's like, please go do it. They will learn. In my company today, there are advanced users of AI that are 10xers, and some of them are actually even 20xers right now. But they don't use it the same way at all. They have their own styles. Some people are Claude CLI people, some people are Cursor IDE people, right? And it's perfectly fine. So there's no one way of riding a horse,
Absolutely.
right? But it's very important. Now, how has that evolved? Not through courses, not through very structured thing, just by pushing people to go use AI and make it safe. Move fast, make it safe all the time. They figure out the harness and whatever they need to do. That's the saddle. Everybody has come up with their own style. And I think that's perfectly fine. So that's very important there.
But maybe if we can interject, maybe such CEOs might be also scared that what happens if I fall from the horse and I get
Yep.
hurt or I'm not able to move
Yeah.
forward. But what you are saying is that you must try and you have to fall, and then only
You
you
have
can
to fall.
learn,
Yeah.
learn, learn riding it, right?
In fact, you have to fall when the stakes are low rather than fall when your competition is rushing past you on horses and you're still trying to figure out and then you fall. Then the
Yeah,
stakes are very high. You lose a lot.
exactly.
With AI, there is an S curve of adoption, right? So you'll spend a year just figuring it out. And that year is not because AI is not ready for you, it's because you are not ready for AI.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of the execs are saying, no, I wait for seeing when my competition is starting to use it effectively and they are getting ROI. But the important point is you have to spend a year on humans before you get there. And if your competition is running fast with AI, they've already spent the year and you're far behind. And with AI, the exponential growth is something where that year you'll never be able to catch up.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental thing people need to understand. Now, there are others who are foolhardy,
Yeah.
right? They'll force that, okay, use AI, doesn't matter. And then, but that I think that's still a better thing out of the two, because first mistake, C-suite will always correct and say, okay, now I understand. But yeah, there are a bunch of things where people can understand deeply that AI is not human. Fundamentally, that is the one thing they need to understand, that it is an alien intelligence, happens to be able to mimic humans. So you have to be extra careful as to how much you are trusting it. So trust but verify, and figure out what is your verification thing. What spot checking are you doing? And those things need to be questions that the C-suite asks.
I think, Binny, you again used a nice wording for AI.
Yeah, I spend a lot of late night chat sessions with Claude and Gemini, just trying to quote unquote break them, but to understand how it really thinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is not human. Like I manage humans. Yeah, I've been a manager for decades. But this thing is very different. You cannot manage it as if it was a human. Its incentive structure is very different, and kind of annoying as well. So, you would prefer humans than AI all the time, but it is so useful. So then, you might have to just use it and learn how to do it. I think in the future, there will be a role called AI managers, who are people who specialize on managing AI. And then there are human managers and AI managers, and they're different skill sets.
Hmm.
And what would your advice be, Binny, just to double click on the Sujay's question as well, for CEOs, especially also on this whole data and the knowledge and the context, right? So, what would your advice
Yeah.
be on that?
So I would say, supposing you are slow on the AI adoption or you're still uncertain, all that is fine. Fix your data first, right? Make sure your data is available and ready. You bust the data silos within your company. Make the environment in your company open. Once you have done that, that itself might take a year for a large company, right? Okay, while you're doing that, now ask people to be more documented. Everything you do, in any department, can you please document it, like how you do it? Because once you have good data and data connection and you have a good documentation, guess what? When AI knocks on door, you have a job for AI, and then very quickly you'll evolve, right? And that's my main advice.
But when you say that and you use this incentive model very well, I wanted to connect, and because AI does not follow that, and for human beings in a company, to become open, we have to clarify the incentive model for them. What's in it for me? How have you experienced that part within your organization? Maybe it is young, you did not have such hurdles, but also talking to other customers, other CEOs. Do you think in larger
Yeah,
companies, people have been there for 20 years, 30 years, they carry that experience that they have is their key differentiation? And
yeah,
now, if you want to break that down, what is their incentive model to open up all their knowledge gates and document it, and their differentiation just goes away?
I know, I know. Yeah. So I'll tell you, um, there's a sad part of this answer, but I'll tell you what I do in a smaller company. Smaller company is easy. The amount of work we have is quite a lot, right? There's no dearth of work. So what we say is that, look, if there are cool projects, then incentivize it that way. Like if you can leverage AI well, that is your, license to go work on this cool project, right? We, and that's how we incentivize people to go and learn more and be more productive, and that's one thing. So in a small company, you can do those things, and everybody is open. And also, of course, we've hired risk takers anyway. Startups hire risk takers, so it's not a problem. Everybody is like that.
Yeah.
And everybody is a learner. They want to be on the cutting edge. All of that is good. Now, large companies, unfortunately, that's the sad part. I think it is generally hard, right? But this is what the C-suite will do. My prediction. Okay. Instead of waiting for AI adoption, there'll be layoffs. Okay. Layoffs to create an overburden of work for the remaining people where there is no choice
To use AI.
than to use AI. I think that's
Yeah.
the only way it'll pan out, which is kind of a sad way. You could have done it the other way around, but that seems to me what anyway people are doing. If you see, there are layoffs happening with companies with a lot of money,
Exactly.
and that's the reason.
Yeah, it's just not a basic productivity improvement. It seems through this approach, they are trying to clarify the incentive model, right? And that
Yeah,
is how
yeah.
a communication is happening. You better do this, and you have a lot of
Stick
work to
versus the
do.
carrot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
basically, yeah, it's basically, look, there'll be 10% people will go away.
yeah,
Obviously, people will say, I need to be a 2xer because then I'll stay. If I'm a
yeah,
1xer, then I'm gone.
yeah.
So that's how it's going to be incentivized, because otherwise, change is super hard, right? And that's the sad part. I think, the corporations just think about it that way, right? Unfortunately, in startups we can do a whole lot more creatively, and see, the larger the company, the less of a chance you have to double your TAM,
Right.
right? In a startup you can say, hey, let's use AI and double our TAM, right? It's okay. And that's the thing. I think the smaller companies are much safer. uh,
Even in smaller companies, I think you identified the core principles and pillars pretty soon. I do know some startup founders who say, let's me first focus on my core product or my core product market fit, which is also important, right, to find your customers. But in that process they lose, okay, I'll figure out my documentation knowledge data later.
yeah,
Let me first do that, right? So I know you are
yeah,
saying this, but there is also, I see this aspect also, it shouldn't be ignored
probably,
in
yeah,
small.
yeah. But they could change faster. I just hope that they change fast. uh,
One of a view of even writing the book is why data is so important is AI is pulling that lever and forcing companies to move faster. Do now. You certainly understand the urgency. How do you see other CEOs in your discussions, and what are they thinking? Will data be established as the fourth pillar, or is maybe just a passing thing? It doesn't need to be. Your frank take on this topic.
um I think it is inevitable. So the companies that will survive will be the companies that have data as the fourth pillar, right? I'm not saying everybody will do it, but they can't survive without it. I mean, so that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And the realization must come as soon as possible, right? Because as you
As
said,
soon as
there is a maturity journey. You will need to have the horse, ride the horse, falls from the horse, and then start winning races with the horse, right?
correct. That's on the AI side. Yeah. And on the data side, same thing.
Exactly. And we see many companies, and it's proven in reports that companies are investing much higher than AI rather than in data, and the investment in data is significantly lagging behind. So such
Mm.
companies must take an internal look and get that realization that they are seeing the picture opposite, maybe, right?
But that's temporary, right? Because see, of course, now the people are trying to get in AI because they need to figure out how. But once they realize that AI is not going into production because the quality is bad, then it'll come back to, hey man, the data needs to be better. So it's a matter of time.
Cool, Binny. I think interesting discussions. As we come closer to this discussion, we have a signature question for our podcast. If we may ask you, just thinking creatively, like you have been doing, creating Cognitos, if you had to personify data, what
Hmm.
does data for you be? It could be a friend, a philosopher, or any fictional character that you have liked
Yeah,
over the years
yeah,
that you've grown up.
yeah. So I've been talking about this for quite some time. There's a character in Star Trek called Spock, Mr. Spock, who's a Vulcan, right? He's not human, he's Vulcan, and very logical. So he's a person who does not understand jokes, right? It does not get emotional, but can speak to all humans. So, if you think about it, in Star Trek, there is Captain Kirk who runs the Enterprise, which is interesting pun on the word. The ship is called
Yeah.
Enterprise, right? So the human is running the Enterprise, but there is Mr. Spock who's actually the right-hand man of the human and makes the human make the right decisions, but doesn't make the decisions. The
Yeah.
captain is emotional, takes risks, and all of that, and Spock is there to help. I think the future of data is not just the numbers, but some intelligence on top that is extremely logical, and that's what Cognitos is like. That's what we want to be for the enterprise. So that's my character for you.
Amazing. But I think it's an important, I like that analogy a lot because, in a way, Spock itself is of no value unless Captain Kirk uses all this
Yes.
information. Similarly, the data is not of any value unless the enterprise really harnesses on that, right? So then I kind of
Yes,
also
yes.
see it that way.
Exactly. So Spock has no actual mission, right? It's the captain who has the mission, which is exactly how I believe we should be using AI. Like, AI should not decide where we go. We should decide. AI is just the trusted guide. And again, Spock was very trusted, but an alien. It's an alien intelligence. We should understand AI is alien intelligence, but we need to build it in a way that we can trust it. The word we use is neurosymbolic. This like neuro part is the interface to humans. Symbolic part is the logical, deterministic thing that you can trust. Just like computers, we trust, right? And that's the platform we have been building, a neurosymbolic platform. I believe while enterprises need creative AI for some aspects, but for the day in, day out business, you need the neurosymbolic guy. And that's the person who will make sure, like when in Star Trek the ship is in a panic and all the humans are kind of feeling sick and dying, Spock saves the day, right? That's what, data with solid intelligence on top will actually course correct for you when humans are not be able to, but most of the risk is taken by humans.
Yeah, I think thank you for that explanation. I am sure listeners would love it, and many might take it to heart and try to find their.
Try to find your Spock. Yeah,
Yeah,
where is your Spock is the question.
Yeah,
yeah. Where is your Spock? That could be title of this podcast, right? Sid? Where is
absolutely.
your Spock?
Absolutely.
Great, Binny. Would you have any final thoughts to share, or anything that we may not have ventured into that you feel like sharing?
Yeah, I think the future is rapidly, we're reaching a future which is unprecedented. So I would just say is like there's all sorts of things happening. There's a 100-hour work week happening, and unfortunately, right, humans have had Saturday, Sunday to take off. But if you think about CEOs, they really don't have Saturday, Sunday off. You know why? Because the company runs, 24/7. Now, the challenge is with AI, AI doesn't need rest. So, if every human is now on the horse's back and the horse never rests, so humans are not going to rest, unfortunately, right? So, that is something we need to be cognizant about is like, what is the future for work-life balance with AI acceleration? So, I haven't talked about that and I don't myself know. All I can tell you is that people are getting busier. So, something to keep in mind.
It's actually a paradox, right? We have put the vision of AI as being, the way by which we can get freedom, and this will do the work on our behalf.
Yeah.
But it's actually, at least in this phase of the cycle, it's turning out to be quite the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's tied to human greed. Like when the tractor was invented, and people would have, I mean, it would have been fine that one guy runs the tractor, everybody is happy on the farm. But no, we had to invent computers, right? So I think same thing. Like we always want more. We're not happy, even with models now. Are we happy with the, if I ask you to use ChatGPT 3.5 today, you'll be like, no.
No.
So yeah, we just are like that. We always want more and more. And the fact that it is now possible to do more, and in 5 minutes you can do what you used to do in one day, is like, yeah, it's like too much rush there, right? So that's the one I don't know the answer to, like what's going to happen. We're just going with the flow.
On that note, Binny, we appreciate you taking the time out in between your 100-hour week. So we really appreciate you took out the time, spoke to us. A
My
lot of
pleasure.
really great insights. Yeah, pleasure having you on our podcast, and thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Sujay. Thank you, Sid. Yeah, pleasure
Thank you.
talking to you, man.
Welcome back. That conversation with Binny Gill was absolutely incredible, Sujay. It was clear that he validates our core thesis. The failure to scale AI today is not just a technology problem, it's a data foundation problem.
Absolutely, Sid. He cut right to the heart of the matter for our executive audience, stressing that data must be elevated to the strategic level. Binny's description of data as the memory of an organization truly resonated with me. Without memory, intelligence is useless, right? And we often see enterprises trying to achieve intelligence with amnesia, leading to failure.
Absolutely, Sujay. And linked to that is also my first key takeaway about him calling data linked to knowledge, because he mentioned a few great points, that data in itself is more important when we start collecting information which is in people's head, for instance, especially in large enterprises, with all the complex processes that are involved, the documentation that is done. And he mentioned how he also encourages, as the CEO of Kognitos, each of his employees to document, which is not just important as people change in their roles and positions in the organization, but also he mentioned a very important point that with the advent of AI, especially in the agentic AI world, we are soon even more going to scale with, that knowledge documentation is going to be fundamentally differentiation to what he termed as language models, which are more and more becoming commodity.
Yeah, and that explains, Sid, why data is so hard. Data fragmentation is just not a technical issue, but the political structure, the incentive model, the culture within organizations, both large and small, where people hold information as their knowledge and experiences and thus power. AI agents cannot solve problems when operating across those data silos, making them prone to crashing or not delivering the expected outcomes. Our data operating model and data as a strategic pillar premise are precisely designed to break down those barriers by requiring C suite sponsorship and providing a holistic structural solution.
Indeed, linked to that is also my second key takeaway amongst many, in the discussion with Binny. And I think we had a very good, kind of a discussion going on between large versus startup slash SME kind of organizations. And Binny made some very critical points. Both in the context of data, but also in general. He mentioned, for example, uh, large companies have one advantage. They carry a very strong process which has been defined over several years and decades in many companies. And with this process, especially if it is documented well, to my previous takeaway, they have the advantage, especially in the agentic world, that these processes can become the formation of the agentic enterprise in the next few years. However, he also mentioned that startups, for instance, have the benefit of speed and agility. And most importantly, as we've seen from his own experiences, is it's much easier to pivot based on how the market demand, based on how the technology innovations are coming through. So I think he made some very important points, and this also applies to data, because in the context of data, the large enterprise have the advantage that they are collecting a lot of data for many years and decades, but it's all about how you then activate it, in which cases small enterprises perhaps has a much faster and a nimble way to activate this data.
Yeah, that well said, Sid. And my final takeaway will be when Binny personified data very beautifully as Mr. Spock, logical, trusted, but an alien intelligence. And Mr. Spock is that advisor and guide for Captain Kirk. The responsibility of decision making is on Captain Kirk, who is that emotional person. But Mr. Spock is that data driven character, if I may say so, who is guiding Captain Kirk to make those right decisions. So, data by itself is not meant to deliver outcomes. They will work together with people. So, I really loved when Binny talked about Mr. Spock as data and Captain Kirk as the person responsible for the ship, which was called the Enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. That perspective on the signature question was very, very unique. I'll also stick my final takeaway with an analogy that he mentioned a few times, but also kind of a very important critical question he posed towards the end. So the analogy was about the horse riding, and important for especially the CEOs and boards to at least learn to ride this horse when the stakes are lesser. And he made a very critical point in that they need to also then use this time to invest in data, because even if they are skeptical about AI and want to be a little secure and ensure it's their enterprise is ready for AI in a year or so, he mentioned an important point that they should at least still ride the horse and learn how to structure with data and investment in data. But then he made a very important consideration towards the end, saying that especially with the advent of AI and Gen AI, if the horse is running 24/7, then the person sitting on the horse, which is us as people, also need to perhaps work long hours. And he mentioned already he's working long hours, and CEOs are working 100-hour work weeks as examples. So I think that brings a very serious question on AI, which I mentioned briefly in the podcast, having a bit of a paradox that it's meant to make our lives easier and take a lot of the activities from us, but in opposite with this horse and the saddle, it's becoming actually much more of a time a long time consuming thing. And I think he also mentioned this very important critical information that he feels there's this stick and the carrot perspective, in terms of especially smaller enterprises using AI as a carrot, so that people can learn and apply out on the job, naturally being risk takers in startups, versus unfortunately in a lot of big enterprises, layoffs being kind of like a stick, because then the people who remain need to have to leverage AI to make sure they can survive and perform at a 2x 3x 5x kind of a productivity.
Yes, that actually is one way to clarify the incentive model in large companies, right? And so, fantastic conversation again today in this episode. And in this episode, we approached the topic from another angle, a bit different from the previous one. However, both converging on importance of data for successfully scaling AI, both at large enterprises and also at small and medium businesses. So, to our listeners, thank you for joining us for our conversation with Binny Gill, CEO of Kognitos. We look forward to seeing you again on our next episode of Data as the Fourth Pillar, the Board and CXO Briefing. Till then, take care and enjoy life.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.